Done deals today as well. Michael Bridge, let's start with what has been a long-running saga, but it is close to coming to an end. Where do things stand with Manchester United and their pursuit of Benjamin Sesko tonight?
Well, good evening, Darmish. They're very close indeed. We know there's been a medical today, and all being well for Manchester United, will be presented to his new supporters at Old Trafford tomorrow as Manchester United face Fiorentina. Now, big day for Manchester United, not just because they've got a very, very good player in the door, but Sir Jim Ratcliffe opening the doors for a new Carrington, a new training centre. Sir Jim Ratcliffe saying it wasn't up to scratch before. So a big day for Manchester United. And a reminder as well, it's a lot of money, but they agreed to deal with Leipzig worth an initial 66.3 million, 7.37 million in performance-related add-ons. So it's a big, big move for him. United, Ruben Amorim said time after time after time last season, they need a bit more on their forward line, and that forward line is going to look very different next season.
You mentioned very different. Matheus Cunha, Bryan Mbeumo, and imminently Benjamin Sesko. They've gone for it, haven't they? They've spent big in this window, haven't they?
They have. And look, it's unheard of to think of Manchester United not in Europe, but maybe just 1 year for a reset. We know Ruben Amorim said constantly, time after, even when he was at Sporting, he likes to join clubs in pre-season. He doesn't like joining mid-season. And he said it when in his press conferences here. They were very close to winning the Europa League. It was a very poor league position, but they have this reset now. And it's a very formidable front three. Matheus Cunha's been there for some time. Bryan Mbeumo's been done for a while. He was on that tour of the United States. And now Benjamin Sesko. So it's a new look United. They've spent big money, and they're going for it.
You say they're going for it. Benjamin Sesko, for one, made it very, very clear that it was Manchester United, and that's all he wanted. Now, that's impressed United, hasn't it?
Yeah, because we talk about players wanting to play in Europe and Champions Leagues. Man United had none of that to offer. But you do wonder, he's 22 years of age. We might be sitting here in 12 months' time talking about Manchester United being back in the Champions League. We don't know. I think it's a thank you to Sir Alex Ferguson, really. It's Manchester United. It's a historical football club. It's still one of the biggest clubs in world football. And there's that excitement there from Sesko, and I'm sure that's it. Newcastle couldn't have done any more. And I think we've got to say that for Newcastle. They put in big money, big wages, but ultimately, he wants to play for Man United.
Look, Sesko's imminent arrival is going to have repercussions elsewhere in that squad because it's going to throw further doubt on Rasmus Højlund's future, Michael. Clearly, his game time is going to be impacted by Sesko's arrival. Look, RB Leipzig did want to bring in Rasmus Højlund on loan, but he's been very bullish, publicly at least, about wanting to fight for his place in the Manchester United first team. However, it is now thought that bids of around £40 million would be considered by Manchester United for Rasmus Højlund. Now, interestingly, he wasn't one of those 5 players that we were talking about throughout this transfer window that Manchester United were willing to listen to offers for. Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho, Tyrell Malacia, Antony, and Alejandro Garnacho. Let's talk about Garnacho because there have been developments, haven't there?
There have been developments. One thing we've known all summer is that Chelsea like the player, but Manchester United want £50 million to sell Alejandro Garnacho this summer. It's not as if they don't think he's a good player. It's just, it looks like he needs to move on in terms of maybe the relationship he's got with Ruben Amorim. He was very unhappy with his Europa League final snub. He's made that very public. But the key from Chelsea's point of view, they think they can sign Garnacho for less than Manchester United's asking price. But there hasn't been a bid yet. And going back to Manchester United's side, he's got 3 years remaining on his contract at United. You feel that this probably will get done, but for what price, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, Manchester United valuing him at £50 million because they'll look at other players that have gone for that amount as well, the likes of Anthony Elanga from Nottingham Forest and Newcastle, Noni Madueke, who actually left Chelsea for Arsenal. But I mentioned a couple of those other players. Jadon Sancho and Antony are two of the big ones that potentially could bring in money for Manchester United. Borussia Dortmund, we're told, remain in talks with Sancho's representatives over a deal, while dialogue remains open with United. No agreement on either at the moment, though it is thought he could be available for significantly less than the £25 million obligation price that Chelsea had when they signed him on loan last season. As for Anthony, there is plenty of interest in Anthony, but he's got one destination in his mind. It is Real Betis. He had such a fantastic loan spell with them last season. So as much as United will be positive about Benjamin Sesko coming in, they still do need to make these sales before the end of the transfer window. That said, you mentioned close to £200 million being spent in this transfer window if and when Sesko's deal is confirmed. But are they stopping there?
Well, I don't think they will. I mean, I think the key for Manchester United is getting those players out, the ones you've mentioned. I think Marcus Rashford to Barcelona is a great move for him. It's wages as well. It's not just necessarily transfer fee, it's big wages they're on. What else do Manchester United do? When I look at Manchester United, I think, brilliant. That new forward line, great. But then I look at the midfield. Needs a bit of a revamp. And obviously there's talk of interest in Carlos Baleba in the midfield from Brighton. We know, as you've mentioned, interest in Donnarumma from PSG. We'll wait and see if that happens. I think that would be an upgrade on Onana. I'm sure that would be as well. So they still need to do business, Manchester United. However, you look at so many clubs and you think, are we ready for the start of the Premier League season? You'd say probably 18, 19 will say no. But are you ready for day one? They'll say, let's give it a go.
You say, let's give it a go. You talk about Baleba. I mean, there's one thing being interested in Carlos Baleba, but Brighton are fantastic sellers and they do not want to sell. They insist he's not for sale. He's still got 3 years left on his contract. He's got the option of a further year. Brighton are under no pressure at all to sell Carlos Baleba. But it is clear that Manchester United are not done in this transfer window. We'll be talking about United a little bit later on in the show, I'm sure. But another big story that is emerging this evening is concerning Chelsea. We've been speaking about Chelsea's pursuit of Alejandro Garnacho. They are looking to make a number of sales in this transfer window as well. Now, the man behind us here, Nicholas Jackson, lots of talk about Nicholas Jackson in this transfer window. He has now told Chelsea that he wants to explore his options outside of Chelsea. So he wants to look at other clubs and whether there is interest in him, of which there is a lot. Chelsea are playing Bayer Leverkusen as we speak in a pre-season friendly. It kicked off at 7 o'clock. The team news was interesting, and it is clear that Nicholas Jackson is not part of the plans either from the Chelsea end, because Nicholas Jackson, Christopher Nkunku, both not in the matchday squad. They are 2 of a number of players that Chelsea are looking to consider offers for, and they have had a lot of inquiries, unsurprisingly, for Nicholas Jackson. Bayern Munich, Juventus, AC Milan have all explored the conditions of a deal.
Chelsea have moved one step closer to landing Alejandro Garnacho. The Blues are understood to have agreed terms with the Manchester United winger, though they have yet to find common ground with United on a transfer fee. Garnacho is out of favour at Old Trafford, with Ruben Amorim adding Mateus Cunha and Brian Bumo to his attacking options after falling out with his number 17. The Argentine was left at home while the Red Devils went to the United States for pre-season, with the expectation being that he will leave before deadline day. Garnacho is desperate to move to Stamford Bridge, having made Chelsea his first choice this summer, and the 21-year-old has agreed personal terms. However, it will of course count for nothing without an agreement on the fee. United's asking price of $50 million appears to be too steep for the Blues at the time of writing. There had been suggestions the Red Devils might pursue a part-exchange deal involving Garnacho and Nicholas Jackson, but their move for Benjamin Sesko appears to have put an end to those conversations. The asking price is lower than in January, when Chelsea and Napoli were both keen on Garnacho. Since then, though, the winger's stock has fallen as it has become clear Amorim doesn't see him as a regular starter. I think with Garnacho, you can understand and you can see that he's a really talented boy, Amorim said earlier in the summer. But sometimes things don't work out and you cannot explain specifically what it is. But I have the feeling, and I think it's clear, that Garnacho wants a different thing with a different leadership, and I can understand that. So I don't think it's a problem. Sometimes you adapt to one guy and you have the connection. Other times you want a new challenge.